Time for Ask the Mayor on KWBE, typically with Mayor Bob Morgan. But in with us today, we have City Administrator Tobis Tempelmeyer, subbing for the mayor. Thanks for coming in today, Tobis.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Tobis is also a Board of Public Works Manager for the City of Beatrice. And the first question I've been asking the last 2 or 3 weeks is, what's up with the splash pad? Is it getting closer to being open or not quite?
And unfortunately, when we started up this season, we had a part that was broken on it. And so, the part's been ordered, and we're just waiting for it to arrive. And once it arrives, I'm sure Pete and his guys will go out and get it installed right away. And we'll let the public know that the splash pad's up and running. But just going to need a little more time.
Probably won't take a long time to install it. Is it a pretty simple thing?
Yeah, Mark hasn't indicated it'll take very long to get it installed, and now we're just waiting on supply chain issues to get it here.
Yeah. This past Memorial Day, I was trying to think back of, a year when you had a better weather-wise start to the pool season. One doesn't come to mind right offhand. You've had good weather pretty much to start out the season. Has attendance been pretty good out there? Have you heard anything about water park attendance at this point?
Yeah, attendance has been strong for us at the water park, and things are going well. I think, they've done a good job down there keeping the place up and running and looking nice. Obviously, it's getting to a point in that life cycle where it just needs to have little updates here and there. We're kind of trying to get some of those things budgeted in, but things are going well down at the water park.
Rate-wise, you've stayed the same for several years now. Is it kind of a break-even thing? Do you lose some on it, or how do you come out on that?
We don't make money at the pool. Never have. Probably never will.
Yeah, but it's not really the reason you operate it, I guess.
No, it's one of those things. It's it's quality of life kind of thing that you have for the public here. You try to make it as close as even as possible, but no, it's not a moneymaker for the city. How
far away do you think you are from really getting really serious about maybe improvements or expanding or changes there? I know you have the fire station that you have to yet take care of as far as paying that off, but are you close at all, or what do you think?
I think it's time for the city to start really looking at that one. Our current water park, and Mark would know this number exactly, but I think we're somewhere about 25 years into the current one. Pools usually last about 30 years, and so it's time to start planning and putting a plan in place for what you're going to do for the next water park. Is it the same location? Is it moved a little bit around? What features does it have? But I think in the next couple of years, you guys start putting a plan together so you can then look to see what you're going to do for funding sources moving forward.
The land east of there, is that all city-owned pretty much, or to a certain extent? How far close to, say, like the cemetery there?
It's city ground over to that cemetery.
I see. Okay. So at least you don't have to deal with that land acquisition when you do get to that point. A lot of activity on East Court Street. The water main work has been going on there and kind of constricts traffic a little bit. People are getting through there, it seems like. All right.
It is. Court Street still is open. The guys out there, Myers Construction, is doing a good job. They're working with us very well, keeping us well informed as part of what they're doing. But yeah, there's a lot of lane closures out there, and lane closures are moving almost hour by hour out there, depending on where they're at and their work process. But again, trying to keep things open. It's going to be a long process. I mean, that water main's been in place for 100 years. It's going to take a while to replace it. We're trying to do everything we can to accommodate everybody along there. Unfortunately, we just can't meet everybody's needs and demands at times, but we're trying to do it the best we can.
With Homestead Days coming up, it'll take a slight pause there, as I understand it, and then pick up after that again.
Right. During Homestead Days, they'll still be in about that 13th to 16th area. There will be some open holes in that area. They will be coned off. There will be marks so people know that they're there. Most of that's the staging area. Not a lot of pedestrians watch the parade from that particular area. But if you are, just be careful. And then we'll continue to work after they're done.
The 4th Street part of that project, how did it go as far as hookup of services? Or was there anything unforeseen that you had to kind of go back and fix? Or was everything pretty well where you thought it would be? And
I think the only issue on 4th Street was they found a private sanitary sewer line. And since it's a private line, it's not on anybody's plans. It's not drawn anywhere. It doesn't get located. I think they hit one of those. Again, not a big deal. They got it fixed that day. But outside of that, everything's gone well. And I know that the street department's going to patch those 2 holes sitting at 4th and Ella Street. They'll get those finished off here within the next couple of days. And when they are, that intersection will be back open.
All right. I did not make it, obviously, to the Board of Public Works meeting yesterday at County Board meeting, but a couple of things on there. Payments recommended to the City Council regarding storm building repair for the city.
Yeah, obviously we had a number of storm damage here about last June, almost a year ago, to the day almost.
Yeah.
And we're working through those. 3FI has been doing a lot of work for us on a number of city buildings, and so we've got some payments going out on those. Some of those payments are for BPW buildings, and so you see them going to the board first and then the council. Some are just city buildings, so payments go straight to the council, but those are working through there. And then obviously we've got the airport roofs, and those are just getting started. Material's been ordered, and we're just waiting for those to come in and start repairs out there.
Do you recall what the total public damage was from that storm that you had, and how much of it is reimbursed at all by, federal sources or anything like that?
So FEMA is not reimbursing us for the June storm.
Oh, okay.
The June storm hit, and there was a lot of damage down in Wymore.
That's right.
And at that point, the city did not have a lot for damages. And by time it was later that the insurance company came out and started looking at our buildings, and that's when they notified the damage and stuff. And so at that point, we couldn't get back in and submit to FEMA, so all this goes through the insurance company.
I see. So,
and I don't remember the exact dollar amount.
Okay. But beyond the deductible?
Oh, yes. This is several $1 million. I
see.
Yeah.
Okay. We're speaking with City Administrator and Board of Public Works Manager Tobis Tempelmeyer on Ask the Mayor today. We'll have more in a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today with City Administrator and Board of Public Works Manager Tobis Tempelmeyer. Well, you're starting out the formation of a new 2-year budget. How are things going so far? What's going on to this point?
Good. So far, the department heads have gone through their budgets. Hannah Bell, our finance director, and myself have sat down with department heads, gone through their operating and capital kind of wants and needs and that kind of stuff, trying to put together a plan and then present to the mayor and council here in the upcoming months. Very preliminary in that process. But yeah, we're starting to put those together and see what we can do moving forward.
Your revenue sources, what's that looking like? Obviously, to a certain extent on property tax, what you're going to get, but like sales tax, and we're coming off a pandemic, getting away from that a little bit now. How's things going there?
Right, because sales tax is always kind of a guessing game. We have some history that shows us what we've done in the past years. But yeah, how much is it really going to come in next year? Is the recession going to hit like you keep hearing on some radio shows and others, say it's going to, the stock market's up 20%. And so what's that mean for sales tax? So we try to have a conservative approach when it comes to some of those, valuations, something people are getting in the mail right now from the county. Again, those are set by the county, not by the city. But what impact will that have on property taxes next year, and what does that mean for a levy? Well, we don't get a county assessed property assessed valuation until mid-August, and by end of September we have to have a budget turned in, and so we have a very short time window in there. So you have to come up with some alternatives of different options depending on where valuations come at and what that means for our levy going forward.
The thought has been that residential and commercial will be up significantly in Beatrice as well as some other communities around the area. Given that, if that holds to be the case, your levy, where do you think the direction might be? Would it be that you would have a lower levy? Would you keep it where it's at, or how do you see that?
So a few things that'll be a little tricky on our levy this year is, one, we are absorbing the airport. So you may see the airport levy come off your bill completely, but you may see the city levy go up. Well, it's going up because we absorbed the airport.
Yeah.
There'll be a few of those things we have to work through. We need to issue probably some public safety debt, something we used to issue about every 3 years. We didn't do it when we had COVID money come in. Mm-hmm. We used that to kind of pay for some of those and not issue a public safety debt one time. But we're getting back into that cycle again where it's time to issue some. And so those are all things we've just kind of tried to weigh out here and talk to the mayor and council about.
We mentioned the fire project before the break. How far along, how much left on that do you have for paying that off?
So those bonds run through 2030. Again, we think we're about a year ahead of schedule right now, but those bonds go through 2030.
I see. Okay. Anything on priorities and capital improvements that you foresee over the next couple of years? Obviously, there's some street projects that are coming up, but anything that people could look for in terms of, whether it's facility improvements, recreational additions, anything like that?
So looking through those, we've got a number of buildings that just need to be fixed up. Some tuck pointing, some concrete repair. Those aren't exciting. A few of the other projects we have out there we're looking at a new playground at Astro Park. The one that's there has been there for 30 years. It needs to be replaced. We've got a few other playground areas that we know we need to update and fix. And so we've got those on the schedule. improvements to different ball fields, splash pads, that kind of stuff that we can make some improvements to. Those are kind of the ones that people are really probably more excited about. But yeah, there's just a whole lot of buildings out there that just need to be a little tender loving care and trying to get some money to those as well.
For their impact, I would imagine the ball fields this time of year, you really see something that the community really likes, and tournaments and things come in. So there's an upside to that from revenue too. People just traveling into town.
Correct. We're not blessed with mountains or big lakes, something like that kind of draws people in naturally. So for us, a lot of economic development is driven by our ball fields and trying to make sure those are nice, make sure mom and dad are happy when they're here, kids have a great place to play, and people want to keep coming back here.
Yeah. Big project next year. You took the bid on it this year, but I think it was going to be April or May of next year, the 13th Street project. It'll be a little tricky because of the way the neighborhood is aligned, and you have one way in and out for a couple of drives, I think, on that stretch there, if I remember right.
Right. So we did take bids on that one. We had it budgeted for this year, but we allowed all contractors to kind of pick different dates that worked for them and suggest them. The low bid was Team Construction here in town, and their construction date was to start next April, which was fine with us. And so we'll work with them, because you're right. 13th Street is the one road that gives you access into Country Club area. And so there's a whole community there that you obviously just can't tear the road out and block off, 40, 50 homes in that area. You have a couple of neighbors there that's their driveway off of that main road. And so how do you continue to have them access? And so we need to sit down and talk to the contractor, make sure we all understand the phasing of that, and then work to make sure we educate the public and let them know and have some input as to how that phasing will work. But yes, it's going to be a long project, and there's going to be times where there's nothing happening because you're just waiting for concrete to cure out and move to the next section.
On capital improvements, I got asked the other day, when is the city going to look at, I guess, for lack of a better thing, completing the loop on the recreational trail? In other words, from Hannibal Park to, say, the Veterans Club, that area in there. Is that far off into the future? I know you have the trail section also from Beatrice to the Homestead, which is on the drawing board. So you got a lot of things in the mix there. They're kind of long-term projects, but the one as far as completing the in-city loop, is that anywhere in the near future at all? Or,
I would like it to be in the near future. We are looking at a grant opportunity this upcoming year to do a study to try to find that path to help us figure out what's the best way to connect those two endpoints. If that grant comes through, then we hopefully would do the study in 24, at least come up with what that path would look like. And then you can start working through getting funding for it, right of way, whatever else you might need to get that project done.
Okay. Before we take a break here, one thing in the past, at least 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years, you've really upped your kind of public communication through your website, various flyers that are in utility bills, various ways of people tapping in, getting alerts, for instance, on when certain things are going to happen. You named a coordinator of that, Amanda Kuhlman, who does that for you. What's been the feedback on that? Generally pretty positive. I know some of those things you can gauge by, there's ways you can see the data, how many times people land on it. But what's it been like, do you think, so far?
I think it's been a very good idea for the city. Amanda does a wonderful job. And we see that in, again, the feedback we get on our various posts, letting people just know what's going on. But like most of the things we do, we hear from a very small percentage of the population out there. Most people don't ever say anything good or bad, which is fine. But yeah, just trying to find ways to communicate with people, let them know what's going on, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We have it all, but to try and make sure we just communicate that with people and let them know, try and give them as many opportunities out there as we can. But I think it's been a good project, a good thing for the city to do, trying to work with department heads to get them to stop doing a project and just let Amanda know what's going on so she can help get that information out. But we're trying.
With that many departments, she's probably got a full-time job just keeping up with everything that's going on, because there's a lot of activity out there.
There is a lot of activity, and yes, it does keep her very busy just trying to get that information out. But she's done a great job for us.
That kind of corresponded, didn't it, when you updated your website? Was that kind of the starting point when you started this whole process? And the website really is easy to use. I mean, it's just one of the easier ones, I think. Just personally from going to it. So I guess from that standpoint, you get one more compliment at least.
Well, it's good to hear. Amanda and Aaron did a great job on the website. But yes, we just continue to try and find ways out there that we can get our story out to others.
All right. Back with more on Ask the Mayor with the City Administrator Tobis Tempelmeyer in just a moment. Back to wrap up Ask the Mayor today with City Administrator and Board of Public Works Manager Tobis Tempelmeyer. Sometime back, the city made the move to up pay levels for patrol officers, sergeants. You're facing a situation where not as many young people going into law enforcement, and you have a lot of certified officers that don't have to then go through the whatever week training process it is. So everybody's kind of competing for those people already in the business. Since that change was made, the pay levels, what have you seen? Has it improved at all?
I think since we've made those changes, we've had, I think we've been able to hire one dispatcher. So I think we might be fully staffed on dispatchers at this point. Police officers, I know we hired one. I think we have an application for another one in right now that they're reviewing. And I know we had a ride along with another certified officer the other night. So I do know they're out recruiting and having people take a look at us and starting to get a few applications in the door.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of an arms race after a while, isn't it? Because when's the next pay hike that somebody institutes, and then it triggers everybody else having to either match that level or get close to it.
Right. And you're not just seeing it in police officers. You're just seeing it in all types of different jobs that are out there. And all of a sudden, one city has all their employees leave to go to some other big city, and then they up their wages, and it just kind of trickles down to everybody else. And the way the state law works is what you have to do.
Full strength in the department here, what do you like to keep in terms of patrol officers? I used to think it was somewhere around 20, but I don't know if that's
I think they're closer to about 27 now. 27. When you figure that they like to have 4 on each shift, and then you start talking to the investigators that they have. These have about 3 investigators. You have police captain, police chief. So I think you get that 26, 27 range is where they're at a lot of times now.
Okay.
Where they'd like to be.
Yeah. Then you have, occasionally you lose somebody to a deployment. Overseas too.
Right, we have that right now. We have one officer who's deployed, and thank you for his service to our country. But yes, it puts us down, an individual for a year. So you kind of have to move some things around and get by for that time period.
Is the competition just for, communities some distance from you, or is it kind of among local departments too? Because you've seen a little bit of transfer here just in this region, say like Beatrice, Crete, Wymore, Gage County, whatever. There might be something where you're saying, why are you competing for my officers? But then they may be competing for your officers too. How do you kind of sort through all of that?
Right. I mean, it's very difficult to do because, if you are living in Beatrice and if you're willing to drive 45 minutes for a job, you think of how many police forces you can go to, or how many electric departments you can go work for, or IT guys you can work for. There's lots of other jobs out there. And so no more where you may have to be comparable to other places. You have to kind of look what the marketplace is and see what's out there, who your competitors are. But yes, it's very, very difficult to do right now.
Okay. I have not seen, you said you've seen, I've seen maybe one, UTVs ever since your ordinance went into effect regarding allowing them on city streets with the exception of 77 and most of US 136. Was it pretty much what you thought? Did you think you'd see more of them, or what's your thought on that?
Hey, I thought maybe you'd see a few more of them, but just haven't so far, which is fine. The few I've seen out there, they're following all the traffic laws and everything else. But most of them have been contractors more than anything else that I've seen personally. Going from job site to job site. But no, I haven't heard anybody complain about them. I haven't heard anything from the chief about issues with them, anything like that. So, so far so good.
Yep. It was hard to know what to expect because, according to some people who didn't like the change, you thought we were going to be overrun by UTVs, but you hardly notice them unless you happen to be in the right spot at the right time, though. So, there was I think it was at the school board meeting Monday night, superintendent of the district was talking about they were letting the contractor know that they'd like to see a move-in date at the school of about mid-July, late July of next year. Obviously, to try to get open during fall of 24. I asked that in relation to, of course, you got the street projects out there, and you have the agreement with the district to fund those, and kind of how that will mesh or not mesh by the time that, the actual street improvements start. Would they be ready on that time frame, or is it going to take longer than that, do you think?
Unfortunately, we were not able to come to an agreement on the funding with the city or the school in a timely manner, and so the street will be delayed. Mm-hmm. Right now, we have a contract with JEO to do the engineering work. The preliminary schedule they gave us, they plan on design work taking until spring of 24. And so they're hoping to bid it sometime in early 24. And then construction, they estimate right now to be 15 months.
I see.
And so obviously we'll look at some phasing opportunities there and what can you do to help mitigate disruption with the school. And so those will be parts we have to look for. But yes, the road will not be done by the time the school opens if they're able to open on time in fall of 24. But we will obviously work with the school and make it as convenient as we can for parents going out there.
Because of the amount of traffic, both during going to school in the morning and then dismissal times, does Lincoln and 33rd maybe become one of the key parts of it to get done as early as you can, or is that necessarily the case? Because I'm thinking about when traffic goes through there, if it's all having to stop, or, you have that, talked about a roundabout there trying to get through there, does that move that part of it up, do you think?
I think those are possibilities. One of the things, if you look at the school site plan, they have an access road, for lack of a better term, that kind of goes through their property. Mm-hmm. That they've mentioned that maybe can we use that to get parents through the property to drop kids on and off? If that's the case, can we have some work done so you can have access to the access road, mm-hmm. and then leave the rest of it kind of during construction? So those are things that as we get closer, we'll have to sit down and have those communications with the school and then help them get the word out to all their parents as to what's the best way to get to and from the school for a little bit.
Okay. Time we have left, you have two major corridor studies projects going on, Court Street and Lincoln Street. Any update on either one of those?
Again, Lincoln Street, we've got the engineering studies being done now. So if you're out in that area, you'll see a lot of survey work being done, finding utilities, locating those types of things. Court Street, we've had the 2 open house here with the public, mm-hmm. and we're working right now on getting the final report put together. We're looking for that to happen probably sometime July, and then probably have Olson's come down and give a presentation to the council about that design, what they're looking for there, and hopefully have a number so we know what that project would cost.
Mm-hmm. We've addressed it many times before, but might as well take another shot at it. People ask about the truck route and why, if trucks took that, you wouldn't have the problem through Court Street, downtown, that corridor. But it's been mentioned many times, you can't force them to do that.
You cannot. I went back and looked at the original legislation that the city council passed back in, late 70s, I think it was, maybe in early 80s. But it's a voluntary truck route. It's what it says when they passed it. It's what State Department of Transportation allowed at that time. So it's a voluntary truck route. You can't force anybody to take it. So this would hopefully then allow us to move all that truck traffic off of Court Street. And then once Court Street's no longer a state highway, you then can do some of the beautification things that people keep asking for. You cannot do while it's a state highway, with planters and bump outs and and street lights and hanging lights and all those things are just things that are not allowed today because of being a state highway.
Would you likely be able to pick up more parking in the downtown?
Yes, the design that Olson has put together actually adds parking along Court Street. Mm-hmm. It's a handful of stalls each block, but it does add parking to the downtown.
Is it a combination of diagonal and parallel, or is it all diagonal? Or
the last design I saw from Olson's had diagonal on the north side and parallel on the south side of the road.
I see. Okay. Parking's always been an issue. I know you went through the whole time period many times where, you have business owners wanting to park right by their own space, but then that doesn't leave space for customers. So this might solve part of that?
It would help, but you are right. Parking in the downtown is always a struggle. It's never in the right locations, and some people want to enforce it, and as soon as you do, then you hit a shopper, and then they're upset and want to know why they're getting a ticket while they're in downtown shopping, and so... yes, it's a struggle.
Okay. One last thing before we wrap up today. Of course, they have Homestead Days coming up next week. Maybe just a quick word about the city's involvement in it. I know you You give permission to use public right-of-way often, like Charles Park, Chautauqua Park. Chip in some money to reimburse for expenses and things like that. But it goes beyond that, too. City personnel help out with kind of making things look nice and get ready to go.
Yes, there's a lot of work put in by city personnel. The Public Properties Department, Mark Pethod and his guys do a lot of work, whether it's make sure everything's mowed and trimmed up and looks nice before the event happens. It's making sure sprinklers are turned off in the right locations. It's, Pat Feist and the electric department go out and make sure certain lights are off so you can watch the movie in the park. Or they've got power that works to make sure all the vendors show up that they can plug in and provide their food. It's Jason Moore in the street department dropping off cones, run the street sweeper through places, sweeping after the parade, before the parade. Yes, there's a lot of manpower that goes into Homestead Days and making it a success.
Law enforcement doing patrol up and down the parade route during and providing some level of, usually have the bike patrol out a little bit.
I did ask about bike patrol. We're sure they could do it this year, just due to the staffing issues. But yes, they're obviously very busy as well.
All right. Thanks very much for being with us, Tobias. Thanks for filling in for Bob Morgan today.
Thank you.